buddy. Oh, we gotta resolve our lighting issues again. The tech crew didn't do their job because they're inside tonight, furry little roommates that they are. Everybody, and happy Tuesday. I think I'm gonna have to slouch down again to get the lighting right. Welcome to another hour of good nature. We always cut it pretty close, and tonight, some of the visual aids blew away in a gust of wind, but that's okay. We will make the best of what we have here. I'm gonna see if I can rearrange things just a little bit better here. I wasn't sure if we'd be inside or outside tonight. That's not working either. Here. Oh. No. Here. I could spend the whole hour trying to do this. Be back here. You guys don't have to look at the light. Yeah, that's a little better. No. Up here. No. I wanted to be outside. Oh, that'll work. I wanted to be outside. So you could possibly, I'm gonna move the microphone here, hear one, the cicadas. We've got some Linnaeus cicadas going. The one that sounds like a salt shaker or like a lawn sprinkler. That's the Linnaeus annual cicada. So no periodical cicadas. But they are still going. It's still light out. They are the day shift. So once things, start to, once the sun drops down a little bit farther, they're going to shut off. And our night shift, we've got some crickets that are singing, but we don't really have a lot of other things that have taken up on the night course yet. That will happen as we get farther along into July and then August too. I'm going to show you these before the rest of them blow away. We had talked the last time we got together about oak apple galls, and my goodness, this is a banner year for them. They are these little growths caused by wasps, tiny, tiny little wasps. We had some pictures, but here is the real deal. This one has been exited by its resident. There's the nearly perfectly round hole of where the mature wasp left, but we've also got one here that was crunched open, and you can see the interior part. This is where the wasp lived in a let's get that at the right angle here. It blowing away too. I'll just take this part. There we go. That center part is where the wasp larvae called home. It was like a bed and breakfast. It stayed there, it slept there, it ate there. And then as it grew up, it too exited and left this structure behind. So yeah, I've been seeing these all over the place. A couple of weeks ago, week ago Saturday, we had our Kane County Certified Naturalist field trip out at the prairie at Dick Young Forest Preserve. And by the pavilion there is a, I think it's a red oak tree. We're in the red oak family, a red oak group of trees. And it's got oak apple galls all over it. Now there is more than one kind of wasp that does that, creates it, but they're all related, and the structures are really similar. I think you have to be an oak apple gall expert before you can distinguish between the two. All right, so the catbird, I'm going to hold this back here in hopes you can hear him. I'm hoping the microphone picks that up. It is just such a pleasant sound, and he has been serenading pretty much all day. I heard him first thing this morning. He might have taken a break in the middle of the day, but he's going strong again now. Lots more show and tells, actually. So we were off that last week of June. So I didn't get to share what I'd done the week before, which was take a little trip with some of the nature nerds down to central Illinois. I'll be talking a little bit more about that as we go through our slides, but I wanted to show you a couple of finds from that trip. This big old lump of coal. It's not from Santa Claus. I'm guessing it bounced off of a coal train. A lot of trains go through the area where we were visiting, which is Menard County. It's down, it's the county that sits on top of Sangamon County, which is where Springfield, our state capital, is. Very agricultural, very much a part of what was once the Grand Prairie in Illinois. So there's corn, there's soybeans, there's a little bit of wheat. The Sangamon River wends its way through the county. In fact, some of it doesn't wend, it just goes like this because it's been channelized, and it's a very agricultural area, a very rural area, but there's a lot of cool nature down there too. We'd actually gone down to look for cicadas. As it turns out, we probably could have found more if we'd stayed up here, but it was still fun to get away. We did see quite a few at Lincoln's New Salem, the state park there in the little town of Petersburg, which also happens to be where my mom is from. We went down to the Sangamon River one morning and I found this cool remnant. It's a scapula, and I'm thinking it is from some sort of livestock, maybe a cow. Oh man, IT's not going to be happy with me again. We just got a bunch of sand in the keyboard. And you can see it's broken here. This should have, formed a shallow arc across the top here, but here's the joint. It would have sat on what I'm guessing was a cow's back. And that was down along the banks of the Sangamon River. Like I said, got some slides we're going to share with you. But before we get to that, there's one other show and tell. You're gonna have to excuse me because I gotta reach over. How are we gonna do this here? These things are heavy. I've been double toil and troubling in the kitchen again. I got a hold of some more foraging recipes, two actually, that are going to be combined into one, using, of all things, green black walnuts. So, the black walnut is covered with a green husk. The nut does mature as we get through the season. It does mature inside that husk. Right now, though, those husks are formed, but the nut inside is still very soft. So you can actually cut it with a knife. Turns out that is the key ingredient in an Italian, see if I can pronounce this correctly, digestif. It's something you drink following a meal to help things settle. The other key ingredient is grain alcohol. If you want to feel kind of self-conscious, go into a liquor store and ask them for a 1.75 liter bottle of Everclear. If you're like me, then you will proceed to over-explain why you're buying that. And it's not going to go into Hawaiian Punch. You're not throwing a party for underage drinkers. You're making this Italian thing here. So let me show you what happened. So, if you know Everclear, and even if you don't know Everclear, you can guess from the name. It's clear. It looks like water. It's actually an excellent disinfectant. I heard that the sales went way up during the pandemic because it's 95% alcohol, 180 proof. I'm sorry, 190 proof. This, so I collected 2 pounds of green walnuts and I cut them in half, and then I poured the Everclear over them. So this is a gallon jug. Within about 2 or 3 days, that clear grain alcohol had turned this really rich, it's even darker than coffee. Like you cannot see through this. except for very close to the edge of the glass here. So this is going to sit for another three weeks or so to get as much flavor as possible out of those green walnuts. At that point, you have to mix it with something sweet. And by the way, this is a recipe I found online at a really cool website called Forager Chef. Well, if you want to learn how to eat something that grows outside, I bet you can find it on the website. Well, to sweeten this very potent concoction, the recommendation was maple syrup, or what the website refers to as green walnut honey, I believe is what he called it. Maybe it's black walnut honey. It's not honey. It's not made by a bee. It's also not a syrup in the sense of it's not sap that you boil down. This recipe too calls for green black walnuts. You slice them, and then you mix them with brown sugar. So I made slightly more than what the is going to go into the digestif, which by the way is called nocino. I don't know if I mentioned that. Nocino. This is really cool too. The sugar is drawing the moisture. There's a lot of liquid in these green black walnuts. So this, so that's sloshing around in there. Some of the sugar has settled here. I stirred it yesterday. I have not stirred it today, but ultimately the sugar is going to dissolve in this liquid. Then this too sits for 30 days. Then we strain out all these walnuts and combine the sweetness here with the alcohol concoction. And then you let it mellow for 6 months, sometimes longer than that, to get those tannins that are in those black walnuts to settle down. I'm super excited about it. And I will certainly bring you more updates as they occur. The one thing that worries me is these are 2 glass jars, and you guys know me, I'm kind of a klutz. I need to find a safe place to put them for well, basically the rest of the year till this hopefully delicious beverage matures. But yeah, more updates to follow as that progresses. I think that does it for our visual aids. Yeah, the other thing I was going to show you was the current state that our sycamore seeds are in. They're called achenes. Sycamore seeds develop into balls that when they're finished, they're about the size, just a little bit smaller than a ping pong ball. But the wind got a hold of it, so it's down in the grass there. But they look kind of cool. They actually sort of look like, remember that graphic they always showed of the coronavirus with all the little spikes on it? That's the stage that our sycamore seeds are at right now. So maybe you can find some and judge for yourself if they remind you of that once very common graphic. All right, folks, let's move along here. Let's see what we've got. We've got 2 weeks worth of slides to get through, and it's already 8:20. So let's see. I can remember. It's always a challenge. Go to the share. We're gonna share our screen, and the obligatory St. Charles Park District commercial. There we go. All right, so let's open this up. Big news in the birding world. I think some of you have already gone out to see this bird, and I'm not sure that it's still there. I just checked eBird right before we came on tonight, and the most recent sighting was yesterday, July 1st. This is a white-faced ibis. Plagatus chihi, I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce the species name. I'm also not sure of the derivation of that species name, because when I tracked down how the genus name was formed, Plagatus, that's actually from, I think, ancient Greek, plagados, which means sickle. And it's a reference to the curved shape of the bill. Now, this is my friend Terry. She was the one who told me about this on Sunday morning. You might be looking at the surroundings there thinking, well, jeepers, what kind of a wetland plant is that? Well, this bird, which does forage in wetlands, they eat a lot of wetland types of organisms, amphibians, as well as invertebrates. They forage with that long bill by poking into the soil. Well, this is not your typical wetland, although it is land that is wet. This is what we call a floodle, or a flooded puddle. It's, well, actually, it's smaller than a flood. It's bigger than a puddle. It's a floodle. It's a soybean field is what it is. It's out, if you're local here, this is out west of the Tri-Cities, just over the line in DeKalb County on, it's on County Line Road, south of Route 38. Again, the bird was there yesterday. I don't think it's still there. It was not listed on eBird today, but Terry took all kinds of pictures. You might be looking at these going, well, gee, Pam, you just said it's the white-faced ibis. Where is the white face? Well, this is a bird that's in non-breeding plumage. That means it's either an immature or it's not breeding. I was trying to figure out if they are breeding here in Illinois. The state of Illinois, the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, in their range map shows them as being considered native to Illinois in the southern half of the state. They don't show any records for the northern part of the state, but that's where online databases like eBird are so useful. You can go on eBird and you can see all kinds of sightings in the northern part of the state. Anyway, it's if nothing else, even if you go out there, check it out, and the ibis is no longer there, this is still a great lesson in looking at these flooded fields. I think we're supposed to get some more. We had a little bit of rain this morning in some areas. I think we're supposed to get a little bit more tonight. And then I believe I saw some late. As we get the rains have been coming in weird patterns where we had a nice soaking rain last Friday, but then sometimes we'll get these deluges and they'll just be in narrow areas. Well, when that happens in a agricultural area, the ground can't absorb the water as fast as it's coming down, and we get these cool puddles. So it might not be an ibis, it might be some other kinds of shorebirds that rely on these wet areas as well. But yeah, keep it in mind when you're out and about. Check those flooded fields out. Now this refers back to that trip downstate. I thought this was kind of cool. This is the land of my people. This is a little town called Oakford, Illinois. This is where my grandmother is from. Some of you might know the furry roommates here at Casa Auto. One of them is named Boker. That actually was my grandma's maiden name. And the Bokers played a role in the founding and the growth of Oakford. So much so that there was even a Boker general store there for many years. Well, this is the heart of farm country. The reason we went down there was to look for cicadas, but being that it was mostly prairie with some floodplain forest there along the Sangamon, and little spotty bunches of timber. The cicadas in Menard County were very localized. This was not one of the areas, but it was an interesting spot nonetheless. This was near the Oakford State Conservation Area, which is, I think it's mostly used for hunting and fishing. Right now it's doing really well at growing poison ivy. Now the poison ivy was behind me as I took this picture, but this, if the areas down there are not in production, this is what it looks like. It's pretty flat. I call it big sky country. If you know, Montana hadn't already latched onto that name, but it's pretty wide open down there. I thought it was kind of interesting. You can barely see it in the center here of this photo, but we can zoom in on it. The barn owl recovery program has a participant here. That is a barn owl. So we're not saying barred, B-A-R-R-E-D. We're saying barn, B-A-R-N. These boxes were central to the barn owl's recovery in the lower half of the state. If we were talking about barn owls, say 15 years ago, we would be talking about them being an endangered species in Illinois. Not federally listed, but in Illinois, they were considered endangered due to their low numbers, which, as it turns out, was due to a loss of habitat. And that habitat is man-made. It is barns. We have lost so many barns. In fact, there was a big barn fire just yesterday up in Woodstock. But the classic wooden barns that had lots of ins and outs, gaping holes, doors, hay mounds, things like that, they are disappearing. Those are what barn owls had come to rely on for nesting. And as those went away, so too did the barn owls. Well, bringing them back, there were some reintroduction programs that took place in the early part of the 21st century, 2005 or so. They didn't work very well. The barn owls didn't want to stick around because there was no habitat. So they either flew away or died. It wasn't until people started putting up these barn owl boxes that the numbers rebounded, and now they all the population goals have been met. There's over 10,000 barn owls now in the state of Illinois, and it's all thanks to these boxes. So if you do happen to find yourself out in farm country and you see a big box on a stick, that's probably what it's there for, is for barn owls. So this is New Salem, Lincoln's New Salem. It's I don't know if it's a state park or a state historic site, but this is where we ended up going to look for cicadas. And this is what a bunch of nerds do when they see cicada holes in the ground. There were just dozens and dozens of those little exit holes that the cicadas create as they're coming up after feeding on tree roots for 17 years. They were singing here as well. This was on the back side of the bell curve. So this would have been, this was 2 weeks ago. Whoa. I don't know if you heard or saw that, but the mourning doves came in to say hi. But so yeah, the cicadas are, it was hot. It was like August, even though it was still June. So they were still singing. Their numbers had started to, people who lived in the area said that there wasn't as many out as there had been, but there was still plenty enough to keep us occupied. That plus all the Lincoln lore in the area. We visited a lot. If you've never been to Lincoln's New Salem, it's a little settlement that dates back to the time of Abraham Lincoln. He was said to have lived and worked there for a few years before he went on to become an attorney and later a statesman, and then our president. But we walked around. Since the cicadas were around, but not in as great of numbers as we've gotten accustomed to seeing just east of here, I started looking at other things. This was outside of one of the little shops there. These little patterns here in the sand are the work of antlions, which are the immature stage of some of our lacewings. But they make these little traps and they sit down at the bottom of them and they wait for ants and other small invertebrates to come along. And then the predatory larvae will jump up and grab the hapless insect. I used some of these little pieces of these shavings here. I couldn't tease any of the antlions out. So either these have been abandoned or I wasn't using the proper technique. But if you happen to find yourself, we see them around here too, but not nearly in the numbers that I've seen other places farther downstate. Maybe it has to do with the soil down there, the sandy soil. I'm not sure, but they are super cool and they are helpful at controlling insect populations, antlions. Now this, I believe, is a video. We'll see if we can get it to play here. Low system resources may affect your audio quality. Try closing some applications. All right, well, try closing that. I don't know if you're seeing that or not. This was supposed to be a recording of a sorry, folks. This is supposed to be a recording of a wood thrush. But if I'm not hearing it, you're probably not hearing it either. I'm hearing voices and I'm hearing cicadas. Well, gee, when I played it in the office, it was pretty cool. Well, we're getting a nice view of a young hickory tree here on the right, as well as some of the other lush growth there at Lincoln's New Salem. Let's move on. I did before we move on to the next subject, I did want to promote if any of you are considering a trip down to Menard County, maybe this will entice you to make those reservations. There's a group of nature nerds, I guess you'd call them, down there. They run what's called the Riverbank Lodge Nature Tours. Riverbank Lodge is pretty much the only game in town for housing, unless you go the Airbnb route in Petersburg. And a few years ago, they started doing these eco tours of the surrounding area. They've got some experts down there that focus on trees. There's actually an arboretum in town called the Star Hill Arboretum. So one day is devoted to trees and their role in the ecology of Central Illinois, and the other day is devoted to the archaeology of the area, and that is led by the retired director of the Dixon Mounds State Museum, which is it's built on a former Native American settlement. They're running these programs on 2 different weeks, August 19th and 20th, and August 26th and 27th. So those are Mondays and Tuesdays this year. And the idea is you come down to Petersburg and you take these tours, and they call them field trips for grownups. not unlike what we do up here with our Learn from the Experts programs and our Kane County Certified Naturalist program. But I think I'm going to sign up for one. I haven't quite decided which week is better, but if you'd like more information, drop me a line. I'd be glad to send you the promotional materials they sent us. You can sign up for 1 day or 2 days. One tour is called the Central Illinois History of Central Illinois Landscape, and the other one is called Trees in History. So should be kind of fun. It will be August in Central Illinois, so it will be a little humid, but yeah, never hurts to learn, right? All right. So let's leave our failed wood thrush recording behind. These guys.
I could hear the wood thrush.
Could you?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Maybe I just don't have my volume turned up enough. Well, that's good to know. Thanks for letting me know that. Maybe I should play it again, huh? Yeah, I'm really not hearing anything.
That's so funny because I can hear it. Maybe I'm the only one. I don't know.
That's oh, Jerry, maybe you got your nature ears on or something.
I
It is Jerry,
guess.
right?
Yeah.
It's
I
not Laura.
can hear it. I heard it too.
You heard it too? Okay. Well, and maybe because I've got there's some background noise here, so maybe I'm glad you got to hear it. The wood thrush was singing wood thrush. I will always associate that song, that flute-like whistle, you know, it's very musical. I will always associate it with hot, humid days and evenings. It seems like that brings out the best, brings out the worst in some humans, but it brings out the best, it seems like, in those wood thrush. Just a beautiful, beautiful song. All right, so these guys, they are popping up in lots of different places. This is on milkweed. So we're leaving Central Illinois behind. We're back up. This is over across the street from me here at Davis Park. These are diurnal fireflies. So they are in the family Lampyridae, which is where our lightning bugs that light up belong as well. But they in their larval phase, which is similar to what our standard fireflies are, these diurnal fireflies actually glow. But as they mature, those light producing organs just don't develop any farther. They never get to the point where they use them for their mating systems. They communicate more with pheromones and such, but they seem to be all over the place. I've been seeing them on goldenrod, on milkweed. I suspect maybe they feed on nectar on these plants, but if you see something in the daytime that looks an awful lot like a lightning bug, but it doesn't have any light producing organs, that's what you're seeing. It's the diurnal fireflies. Sarah, I don't know if you're on tonight, but if you are, thank you for taking these photos. That's from a distance, and then this is up close. This is a little plume moth, and they look kind of like, remember when you used to buy those balsa wood gliders at the toy store or the dime store even, and you'd put the wings together, and you'd have a little piece of metal at the front to balance it out, and it would fly. That's what these plume moths always make me think of. This was a really small one. Sometimes plume moths have a wingspan of an inch or more, but this one was probably barely 3/4 of an inch. I believe it's a grape plume moth. There's a lot of teeny weeny little parts you need to look at to make that determination. But where this was found, which was at Burnage Forest Preserve, there was a lot of grape around, and a couple other pages that I follow on Facebook people have been reporting great plume moths. So I'm pretty sure that's what this is. We have lots of different types of plume moths in this area, and a lot of people are satisfied if you just point out to the moth in the shape of a T or balsa wood glider and call it a plume moth. They are seen, there's some whitish colored ones where they really tend to show up best is like this on the front of a jacket or on a door, a screen, siding, things like that. If they're out in their natural environment, if they're on a plant, you can walk right by them and barely notice them. But we've got a good population of plume moths in our area, and these little guys are out and about right now. Sarah, I think this is your finger. So this Burnage Forest Preserve, we had a little outing there last Friday in the gentle soaking rain. It was so nice to be out and walking and hearing the rain, seeing the rain, smelling the rain. Well, the slugs were doing the same thing. There were tons of slugs out on the trails there at Burnage Forest Preserve, which if you're not familiar with it, it is up in Elgin, Illinois. There are a couple different entrances to Burnage. One is on Big Timber Road. That's the only entrance I've ever gone in on. This until last Friday when we went on Coombs Road, Coombs. But so this little slug was it was taken aback at having been picked up. So its tentacles up front here are pulled in, but there were more to be seen. This one, see if I can get him moving here. This was supposed to be a video. There we go. It's going to tell me my resources are low. Maybe if I close Park District website, that'll help. So this, I was struggling to walk down the path. This was the paved part of one of the paths there at Burnage. There were so many slugs and I didn't want to squish any of them. So I finally just gave into the slugs and let them cross, and I thought I was making a video. It seems to be frozen. But if you've ever watched a slug move, there's really not a lot to this. If you can imagine those tentacles there at the front, the start of the video, they were here, and at the end of the video, they were at the edge of the frame. So not a lot of movement on 30, 35, 6, 7 seconds of video. Oh, there we go. Look at him tearing it up there. So slugs, they lay down a little streak of slime, and then they ripple their bodies over it. It's a pretty cool way to move along, and it looks great as long as there is sufficient moisture. Now, today I found a slug with a little bit of rain earlier today, but not a lot. And this little slug today's slug was a heck of a time. I finally picked it up and I put it underneath some ground cover where there's a little more moisture on the soil. Hopefully it was able to regain its balance. I could watch these. I love watching snails too. They just look so peaceful as they're gliding along. I don't think this one is doing anything other than moving. Sometimes they'll move and then they'll start moving. But I think this one was just probably trying to get out of the way because there were several people walking on this path, and it's not a safe place for a slug, even on a rainy day. All right. When you have that kind of rain, you gotta expect to see some amphibians. This was a little toad that had scurried underneath the Virginia creeper here, and then he scurried so far that he actually came out on the other side. The only type of toad we have here in Kane County, and actually most of northern Illinois, is the American toad. If you go a little bit farther downstate, you'll run into the Fowler's toad too. But this little guy was just loving the moisture in the air, as we were too last Friday. And when you've got moisture in the air, you're going to have fungi. So this is a very robust growth of oyster mushrooms. It's not, we've got a few different types of oyster mushrooms around here. This one happens to be non-native, and so I'm guessing it would be collectible. You're not supposed to, take anything out of a forest preserve, but I thought that all bets were off if something isn't native. I don't know. You might not want to push it, but if you do see these growing someplace where it is able to be collected, like say a state park, this is edible. These were a little bit past their prime. They are yellow oyster mushrooms, and these are kind of more of a cream color, kind of more the downside, the faded looking side of their fruiting. There is a larger structure inside this dead tree that is producing these fruiting bodies. Here's a look at the gills that are underneath, and you can see there's several things that are either calling those gills home or maybe having a little snack themselves. These two, the color's a little bit better, but I think they didn't feel, they felt slimy. And a mushroom at its peak, when it's ready to be eaten, is usually not slick and slimy. But this tree was just covered in them, as well as the remains. Some of this dark stuff here, there were remnants from past emergences of yellow oysters. So I don't know what kind of tree this was, but it is much beloved by this particular type of mushroom. Here's one look. There were many wide open views like this. Burnage is a combination of wooded glacial deposits and then open prairie, restored prairie areas. And it was like being on a little mini vacation, probably because I'd never, been to this part of Burnage before. You know how you get that feeling when you're on vacation or you're not at home. Things are just a little bit different. And it was cool to see all these different prairie plants either in bloom or just getting ready to bloom. Here's some rattlesnake master. There was a lot of wild quinine blooming. There was some lead plant that was still in bloom. Some of our coneflowers were blooming. Really great time of year to be seeing the prairie. And from there, we stopped at a friend's house, our friend Lori, who had the good fortune to have a pool in her backyard that she's not using. And this pool has a pool cover. You can kind of see it down there in the lower right-hand corner. The pool cover, thanks to the rain that we've had, collected a lot of water, which attracted tree frogs. And she has the coolest tree frog nursery. Here's this little guy is underneath the water. It's not a great picture. My phone camera likes to focus on the surface of the water, even though I kept trying to get it to focus at what was in the water. But this is a young, almost transformed gray tree frog, and it's in its green color. A lot of times they are bright green when they're younger, and they can turn green when they're older too, as I've heard it, I don't know, emotional state isn't quite the right word, but if the frog is excited about something, can become green. If it's relaxed and resting, oftentimes they are gray. But there was this picture, and then on Lori's Facebook, there was also this picture. Look at all these little guys that have come out. This is, they're probably taking some of their very first breaths of air, the transformation that frogs and toads undergo when they go from being tadpoles to being land dwelling organisms is pretty remarkable. They're switching from breathing or taking their oxygen in through gills, taking the dissolved oxygen out of the water through their gills, to taking air in lungs. And they're also switching their diet from being primarily herbivores to being carnivores. So this is what's going on. Lori's been putting these blossoms in there so they have something, if they're tadpoles, they can feed on, and when they're recently transformed, they can have a place to hang out outside of the water. And then there was this cute little picture too. I don't know if this is mom or dad, or if it's a hungry tree frog that's come in to maybe eat some of the smaller frogs. It could be going any of those directions, but this is what a mature gray tree frog looks like. A little side note, I was down at Red Oak Nature Center today, and they have a tree frog. He's probably getting close to the end of his life, but they have had him there for 9 years. I didn't realize the lifespan of these frogs was that long. In captivity, he's got a little advantage there. He's not going to, hopefully, not going to get eaten there, but kudos to them for having a frog like that for so long. This little guy's got it made too. He's hanging out. This is in the patio area where the pool is and where the tree frog nursery is at our friend Lori's house. This was just something that struck me. I was walking in Geneva the other day. This is on the east side of Geneva. This is a plant that it's an introduced species, but it has a lot of uses medicinally as well as food-wise. This is chicory, and it's in full bloom right now. It's really a pretty plant. I have never really heard it called invasive, but it can, as you can see. So this is just a parkway. Oops. This is on the right here. That's Route 38. It's really kind of harsh habitat, and apparently the grass there doesn't get mowed terribly often. But this is where it likes to grow. I see it. There's stands of it along Route 31 as well. And it's again, it's not native, but it does brighten up some of our scrubbier areas, and it doesn't really seem to invade our more pristine ones. The pretty little blue chicory plants. And this so this is the side of a building on the east side of Geneva, and I took the picture because I was thinking we are still recovering, I guess you'd say, or feeling the effects is maybe a better way of putting it, of the emerald ash borer. These are 2 ash trees that are growing in, again, not great habitat. There's not a lot of healthy area for the roots to spread out. But I think these trees they were affected by emerald ash borer at one point. When I got up closer to the bark, you could see where woodpeckers have been pecking in it. The one on the right here is definitely, not long for this world. The one on the left, I don't know if it's been treated, but the foliage anyway didn't look too bad, but either one of them has much of a chance with the roots covered by pavement and constricted there by that building. But I went up to see if I could see. I haven't seen an emerald ash borer beetle in many years. And I thought, gee, wouldn't it be something if this was like a little oasis for them? And it's not. I didn't see any ash borer beetles on either of these trees, but I got the feeling that I was being watched. Can you see who's there in the center of this slide? There was a mourning dove sitting on, for what mourning doves do. This was a pretty well constructed nest. It's actually got kind of sides to it. A lot of times mourning doves will just pile up a few twigs and a few blades of grass and call it home. But this one, I almost thought for a minute that maybe they had taken over the nest of another bird, but I didn't want to disturb her too much, but I did go around to the other side and look a little bit, and it is pretty flimsy. But yeah, there she is hanging out in just that little scrap of habitat there on this failing but still hanging in there ash tree. And then this, so as I continued my walk, I was actually heading back home at this point. I think I've talked about this before. This is that Riverwalk area on North River Street in Geneva. It is absolutely gorgeous right now. The bee balm, the yellow on the left side there, that's gray coneflower. The bee balm or monarda is there in the foreground. We've got some compass plant right in the center. In fact, I think if we zoom in, then we might see, because I was getting scolded. Yeah, there was mom on the right and dad on the left, red-winged blackbird. And they were, even though I was a considerable distance away, they were not happy that I was there. They didn't come towards me, but I think that their offspring were probably down here in the vegetation below. Prairie dock right next to the pathway, some ironweed is blooming. These are wild petunias. There's a nice little clump of them. This is more monarda. I love the structure of these flowers. There's all these little tubes that each give a little gift of nectar to all the insects. And there were a lot of insects around here. This is a huge stand of monarda. And uh, I didn't focus on anything in particular, but if you watch this, you just see all kind until it buffers. There were so many tiny little bees and flies too that were attracted to these blooms. And there was a couple of bumbles too that were more in the background, bumblebees, but this flower just has so much to offer. It's a wonderful native. It's part of our, what we'd call a pioneer prairie plant. It takes a hold pretty easily. You can see it can stand. They can be a little bit aggressive too. Sometimes people end up removing some of their monarda. But all right, let's move on because that's making me dizzy. Right across from the monarda was these daylilies. Yeah, I don't know what else I can. Boy, that looks a little blurry, but there was nothing. There was nothing going on over here. I don't know, like, if I know that the River Walk, all the prairie plants are managed by volunteers. I don't know if this is like an HOA or something. This was right across the street from some condos. So I don't know who was behind this, but it was the contrast was just so obvious. All the insect life and the native plants, and really nothing at all going on there with the daylilies. I forgot I put this in there, just a little reminder to mention to you guys, the earwigs are everywhere. I think I might have to write about them because every time I turn around, there's earwigs. This one was in my car. First, I was wondering what's an earwig doing in my car. And then I remembered I had a big bag of branches in a landscape waste bag. slightly damp branches in a paper bag is ideal habitat for earwigs. This one is a male. You can tell that by these big, they look like pinchers. They really don't pinch. In fact, when I picked this guy up, I was trying to get a sniff. They're supposedly, this is a European species. They supposedly release a noxious defensive chemical when you handle them. I wasn't able to pick up on that, but earwigs seem to be everywhere right now. Probably a combination of our warm temperatures and then the moisture that we've had. Oh, and then I wanted to mention this. We're just about time to wrap up here, but this is, if you've not watched or if you've not seen any of these YouTubes by a YouTube channel, it's called Be Historic. I think I've got it. Now we'll get to the information on it in a couple of slides here, but they actually produced a little video about a place near and dear to me, Red Oak Nature Center down in North Aurora. There is a Native American site there called the Banbury site. Now, if you're familiar with that area, there is a road just a little bit north and east of there called Banbury, B-A-N as in Nancy, B-U-R-Y. But this is the Banbury site, B-A-M-B-E-R-Y. And it's all kinds of Native American artifacts have been found there. There's evidence that there was some burials that took place there as well. This is, if you're familiar with Red Oak, this to the left here, that is the Blue Sky, what's now called the Blue Sky Prairie. Back in the day, it was called the Steffi property because there was a house there. But this is looking west from the area of the railroad tracks that run along the front of the Red Oak parcel. This Banbury site was explored over 100 years ago, and several tools, a ceremonial knife blade was found. The area was quarried heavily because the soil there is very sandy. In fact, let's go back to that. Where's my soil picture? Here's the soil. You can see the soil alongside of the Fox River Trail. It's very sandy. This fine grained sand was found to be perfect for the forges that were in the area that forged metal tools and other parts. And so there was a lot of quarrying activity, which it's funny. I worked at Red Oak for 7 years, had no idea that the area had been a quarry 100 years before. But let's go back here. So this Banbury site, you can follow kind of a pseudo trail down to the river. You'll come across this building, which is actually an old pump house that would pull water out of the Fox River and send it across underground and then across the street to a golf course that used to be across from Red Oak. This was part of that Banbury site. I went down there thinking, well, maybe, something might be along the edge of the river, but it's so I guess you'd say degraded. There's a lot of reed canary grass down there. There was a little bit of swamp milkweed brightening up the area there. Some cool little, I think these are moths that were on the swamp milkweed, but it's they had put gravel down. They, as the golf course people that built that pump house, there was a gravel road down in it, so that kind of made it hard to dig around. Plus, it started raining this morning, so I didn't spend a lot of time, but I hope to go back. And if you're in the area, you might want to check it out too. Check out this YouTube channel too. If you're at all into natural history and you're here in the area. You can see down there in the lower left, Be Historic, all one word. And they've done a series on the Chicago, Aurora, and Elgin trains. And actually they call it Tragedies of the Chicago, Aurora, and Elgin. It's all the train wrecks that have happened over the years. But that train is what forms the bed for the Fox River Trail that we're looking at here. They've also got this Native American sites of the Chicago region, and you'd be surprised at how many sites we walk by or we drive by every day. So it's worth checking out. Be Historic on YouTube. All right, folks, we are past time. It means it's bedtime. We got just a couple of chats to get to here. I'm going to stop the share, and we're going to see what we've got to say here. Janice, yeah, the lamp, I don't know if you can see, it's attracting. Yeah, it'll be I think it'll glow too much if I bring it over, but there's kind of a cool collection of insects that are appreciating the lamp as well. Oh, Craig and Kelly, thanks for that tip. Whiskey Acres makes a nocino with black walnuts harvested from the Morton Arboretum. That is good to know, because I would like to know what it's supposed to taste like, so then I can figure out if this is anywhere near the mark or not. So yeah, I will definitely check that out. Appreciate that tip. And Janice, you saw a plume moth too. Yeah. It's funny, things have seasons, and usually if you're seeing something, other people are seeing it too, and it's just nice to be able to have that affirmation. So yeah, plume moths, all those prairie flowers that are blooming. If you have a chance to get out, we've got a holiday this week, might give you some time to get out and check it all out. With that, everybody, we're going to sign off for tonight, but we will be back again next week with more good nature. I appreciate your time. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank
Happy
you, Pam.
Good
Independence
night, Pam.
Thanks, ma'am. Good
Thanks,
night.
Pam.
Thank you.
Day. Take care.